I'm not angry about the money, Marcus.
Then what?
I spent a year pretending to be someone I wasn't, trying to find someone who would love me for who I am.
A millionaire single dad pretends to be poor on every blind date, until he meets one honest waitress. Marcus Chen sat in the upscale cafe, deliberately wearing his oldest jeans and a faded university sweatshirt. His BMW was parked 3 blocks away, replaced by an Uber ride that had dropped him at the corner. He'd done this 12 times before, and each time the result was the same. At 36, Marcus had built Chen Technologies from a college dorm room idea into a software empire worth $400 million. He had everything money could buy: a penthouse overlooking the city, a collection of vintage cars, vacation homes in 3 countries. But he also had something money couldn't fix: a 6-year-old daughter named Lily, who desperately wanted a mother, and a deep-seated distrust of anyone who got close to him. His ex-wife, Natasha, had seemed perfect, beautiful, charming, interested in his dreams. It wasn't until after their divorce that he discovered she'd married him specifically for his wealth, had never loved him, and fought for custody of Lily only to increase her alimony payments. When she lost, she'd walked away without a backward glance. That experience had left scars deeper than any business failure ever could. So Marcus had developed a system. Every blind date, arranged by well-meaning friends or through exclusive dating apps, started with a lie. He'd present himself as a struggling small business owner, barely making ends meet, drowning in debt. The women who stayed after that revelation, who showed genuine interest in him rather than his bank account, those were the ones worth a second date. So far, 12 women had failed the test. Some had excused themselves immediately. Others had lasted through coffee before suddenly remembering prior commitments. One had actually laughed in his face and asked why she'd waste her time on someone going nowhere. Date number 13 sat across from him now, checking her phone with barely concealed boredom. She was beautiful, they always were, with designer clothes and perfectly manicured nails that probably cost more than most people's weekly grocery budget. "So, Marcus," she said, not looking up from her screen, "what do you do?" "I run a small tech repair shop," he said, the lie coming easily now, "fixing computers, phones, that kind of thing. Business is slow. I'm actually behind on rent this month." Her eyes finally lifted from her phone, widening slightly. "Oh, I see." She glanced at her watch. "Actually, I just remembered I have a thing." "No, you don't," Marcus said tiredly, "but it's fine. You can go." She didn't need to be told twice. Within 30 seconds, she was out the door, leaving him alone with 2 untouched cups of coffee. "Rough date?" Marcus looked up to find a waitress standing beside his table. She had dark hair pulled into a messy bun, kind eyes, and a smile that seemed genuinely sympathetic rather than pitying. Her name tag read Sophie. "Is it that obvious?" Marcus asked. "She left like the building was on fire," Sophie said, beginning to clear the abandoned cup. "That's usually a sign." 13, Marcus said suddenly. This was number 13. Sophie paused. 13 bad dates? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say the problem might not be all them. Marcus laughed despite himself. "You're probably right. I'm Marcus, by the way." "Sophie," she said, though he'd already read her name tag. "And I'm not trying to be rude, but if 12 women have run away, maybe you're doing something wrong? Do you have weird hobbies? Chew with your mouth open? Talk about your ex constantly?" "I lie to them," Marcus admitted. Something about her straightforward manner made him honest. "I pretend to be poor to see if they'll stick around. They never do." Sophie sat down in the seat his date had vacated, which surprised him. "Okay, that's actually kind of genius and also really sad. Why would you do that?" Over the next hour, Marcus found himself telling this stranger everything, about his ex-wife, about his daughter, about his wealth, and his fear that no one would ever love him for who he was, rather than what he had. Sophie listened, occasionally refilling their coffee, sometimes nodding but never interrupting. "Can I tell you something?" Sophie said when he finally finished. "What you're doing is just as bad as what you're afraid of." Marcus frowned. "What do you mean? You're judging these women before you even know them?" You're setting up a test they don't know they're taking. That's not fair, and it's not honest. You can't build a real relationship on lies, even if you think they're justified. So what should I do? Just tell everyone I'm rich and watch them pretend to like me? No, Sophie said. You should be yourself, tell the truth, and trust that the right person will see you, not your bank account. She stood up, smoothing her apron. My shift ends in 20 minutes. I know this is crazy and you can absolutely say no, but would you want to get dinner? Actual dinner, somewhere that's not my workplace? Marcus stared at her. You know I just told you I test women by pretending to be poor, right? That didn't raise any red flags? Oh, it raised several red flags, Sophie said cheerfully. But you were honest about it, which suggests you might be capable of learning. Plus you have kind eyes and you tip well. I checked your previous receipts. You've been coming here for weeks for these disaster dates and you always leave 20%, even when the date abandons you. That's your criteria? Tipping? People who are rude to service workers are people I don't trust. People who tip well even when they're having a terrible day? Those are good people. She pulled out her phone. So, dinner? Fair warning, I'm going to order the most expensive thing on the menu, and you're going to pay. And then we'll see if you're as evolved as you think you are. Marcus laughed. Are you testing me now? Absolutely. But at least I'm telling you about it. She grinned. That's the difference. They went to a small Italian restaurant in Sophie's neighborhood. She did indeed order the most expensive entree, along with an appetizer and dessert. Marcus found he didn't care. They talked about everything. Her dreams of opening her own cafe, his worries about raising Lily alone, their shared love of old movies and bad puns. Why are you working as a waitress if you want to open a cafe? Marcus asked over tiramisu. Because I'm saving money, Sophie said simply. I have about $30,000 put away. I need $80,000 more for a down payment on the space I want, plus operating costs. At my current rate, I'll have it in 3 years. I could... Marcus started, then stopped himself. You could what? Give me the money? Sophie's expression was unreadable. I was going to say I could invest. If you're serious about it, are you offering as Marcus the struggling tech repair guy or as Marcus the secretly rich guy? He sighed. You're right. I'm sorry. That was me trying to fix things with money instead of just being present. Sophie's expression softened. See? You're learning already. They dated for 3 months before Marcus told her the truth. Not because he was testing her, but because he wanted to build something real first, something based on who they were rather than what he could provide. When he finally showed her his penthouse, introduced her to Lily, who loved Sophie immediately, and explained the full extent of his wealth, Sophie's reaction was not what he expected. I'm angry, she said quietly. I know, I'm sorry. I should have... No, not about the money, Sophie interrupted. I'm angry that someone hurt you so badly that you felt you had to hide who you are, that you couldn't trust anyone with the truth. She took his hands. Marcus, I fell in love with a guy who makes terrible dad jokes, who talks about his daughter like she hung the moon, who knows the lyrics to every 80s song on the radio. The money doesn't change any of that. It doesn't make you more or less worthy of love. I love you, Marcus said. I've wanted to say it for weeks, but I was afraid that I'd only say it back because of your money, Sophie finished. Marcus, I've been in love with you since our second date. When you admitted you didn't know how to help Lily with her math homework and spent 20 minutes explaining that you'd hired a tutor because you wanted to make sure she got the help she needed. That's when I knew. Knew what? That you're a good man. That's all that matters. Everything else is just details. 6 months later, Marcus proposed, not with an enormous diamond in an expensive restaurant, but with his grandmother's simple gold ring during a picnic in the park with Lily, who had helped him plan the whole thing. Sophie said yes. At their wedding, Marcus gave a toast that made everyone laugh and cry. I spent a year pretending to be someone I wasn't, trying to find someone who would love me for who I am. The irony is that I found her by finally being honest, by finally being myself. Sophie didn't fall in love with my money or my business. She fell in love with a guy who makes bad jokes and can't do second-grade math, and that's the luckiest thing that's ever happened to me. Sophie stood up, taking the microphone. For the record, I did eventually accept his investment in my cafe, but only after I made him sign a contract stating he was a silent partner who had no decision-making authority and absolutely could not reorganize my storage room more efficiently. The crowd laughed. Marcus grinned. But seriously, Sophie continued, her eyes finding his, Marcus taught me something important too. He taught me that honesty isn't just about telling the truth. It's about being brave enough to be vulnerable, to show people who you really are, flaws and all. We both had to learn to trust, and that's made us stronger. Years later, when people asked Marcus about his successful marriage, he always told them about the 13 failed dates, about the waitress who called him out on his nonsense, and about learning that the right person doesn't love you despite your truth. They love you because of it. And every year on their anniversary, Sophie orders the most expensive thing on the menu. It's their private joke, their reminder that love isn't about what you have or what you pretend to be. It's about finding someone who sees you, really sees you, and chooses you anyway. The real you. Not the performance, not the test, just you.